We're back for episode 4 of the Real Work podcast with myself, Ed Lofts. Today's guest is a UFC superstar. He's performed unbelievable knockouts over many, many years in different disciplines of martial arts. He's an amazing human being and a character who I did not know how to introduce myself, so I had to call in some help from the legendary Bruce Buffer.
Introducing first, Michael Venom Page!
Family to me, so
100%.
we've grown up a long, I don't even know how many years, sort of like we fought each other at tournaments before. It's been a really interesting journey. The martial arts for us has kept us on a path. I'm not sure what path that is, but it's provided us, from conversations we've had before, about actually being happy, internally content, able to reach external goals, but also internal goals as well, like emotionally and developmentally. Kind of thing. We've been through things like personal development programs. Obviously, we go through training programs all the time. We've had lucky experiences like training with like Ido Portal, and then I've been invited to shoot fighters with you guys quite a few times as well. And for me, there's like a family vibe to it all, and I think that's really important, and it comes across really well in all your videos with your family. You've got like the brothers, Kaylon as well, and it's the family unit. I don't know if you can talk a little bit about what it feels like, because your family to me was a massive support unit all the way through my life since I was maybe 12 years old or something. So can you tell us about how that's been for you? And there's two sides to this coin, I think, because you've got the fact that your family are there for you, but what does it also feel like to have a family where there's loads of other kids that aren't actually your brothers and sisters, and you've welcomed it? Like, people could put up barriers and say, well, why are my parents giving these other kids attention or I'm helping them? But you didn't do that. You always were like, whatever attention anybody else gets is important for them. Like, there's a balance there.
It's weird. I guess it's just unknowingly, just because of how my dad was, and my mum very similar as well. And I would actually blame the martial arts, because both of them joined martial arts late. But then it was a place for them to feel welcome, because both my mum and my dad wasn't born here. So when they came over here, one way for them to actually make friends, and literally I spoke to my mum about this, and she said when she got to London, she only had her older cousin, Stan Brown, who she knew enough to kind of go anywhere with. So she knew he was into he's massively into the martial arts. Like, he was, I think, close to being a master he is now. And she was just like, it's one way for me to just make friends and meet people. So, and I know my dad got into it as in more so and actually started clubs, but it was very similar for him as well. It was just a community of people that he could just go and socialize with as well, while doing something. So I guess for them, being welcomed by people that are not their family, that brought them in as family, they then extended the same with everybody else. So then obviously when my dad started the clubs, I think just family is always been a big thing for him. And we've all of my siblings taken that on board. And the reason I say that, especially with him, is because we all have different mums. And I've seen it in other scenarios where everyone's got like what they call stepbrother and sister, and it does feel like stepbrother and sister. The term stepbrother and sister when I was younger, and even now, used to piss me off so much, because I was like, no, they're my brothers and sisters. Like, it didn't feel like there was that step. Just felt like there was like you said about barriers. And it actually used to annoy me when people were like, oh, they're your stepbrother. Like, no, it's just my brother and sister.
You don't use that.
It just wasn't, and it wasn't like anybody told me not to, or how to feel like that. I just genuinely just felt like that just felt uncomfortable for me to hear. And again, then my dad extending those blessings to everybody that he used to teach, like to the point where, let's say Simon Lewis, again, a good friend of ours, he would go and drive out of his way to go and pick him up. Then come back, teach him in the classes with all us, and then drop him back, as well as having to do it for all of us as well.
Yeah.
And he did that so many times. The amount of times he had to go and pick people up before competitions and then drive. Like, we had to wake up at like 5 in the morning just for him to pick everybody up to meet at like Bridge Park in Harlesden, for everyone to get, like, for other people to get to, and then we drive up to Manchester or Birmingham and this and that. And he's always been like that. So for me, it's just second nature to then continue that blessing almost with other people. So like you say, when you guys joined, it didn't feel like anything apart from, but we get more brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We get more family extended, and we got such close connections to those people, sometimes more so than a lot of my actual family.
Yeah.
And this is why I say, like, martial arts, I have my martial arts family, and it is that term, it's martial arts family. And yeah, the martial arts in general has, I think that's one thing it's done it. This is why I think I was so into martial arts. Aside of actually doing well in it, it just felt like home. Because I picked up football, I picked up basketball, I picked up cricket, I was swimming, I was skiing, I was capable, through martial arts, obviously, the coordination and stuff that I took from martial arts, I was capable of picking up other sports very, very quickly. But martial arts was something I just came back to. Yeah. Like, I couldn't leave it. Even while I was playing football and getting scouted and doing stuff, I had to do martial arts. So I had to do it. I couldn't stay away from it because it just felt like a home. And it's just that, for me, is a big part. Like, and I enjoy that, not just inside the martial arts arena, but also outside. Like, we had the barbecue yesterday. Like, I'm bringing so many people from so many different parts of my life, but still as one, as family. So yeah, that's just a big thing for me, man.
Yeah. So something you said that was really interesting to me. My brother Ant and my older brother Mark, we have different dads, but we never said stepbrothers. Exactly the same thing. If somebody said it, we corrected them around it. And for me, that would be the separation. We're refusing to allow somebody to put wedges between our family. Yeah. It's the bond there. With, like, say, cell on a molecular level, cell division. So when two cells divide and one doesn't recognise the other one, because they should have duplicated and they should be coherent and working with each other as a bigger organism, but when they separate and one doesn't recognise the other one, that's what illness is. So all illness sets in
based on
from this separation and division. Okay. Then you look at things like the complex trauma. So narcissism, narcissistic abuse causes a separation in the other person, the victim that's suffering the abuse. They start to fall apart and not know who they are.
Interesting.
So this is like a running, reoccurring thing, that anything that separates and doesn't recognise the similarities, even in society, we've been talking about a bit recently, we've got like underlying racism, we've got these kind of little gangs and the tribes, and it's like, when I was growing up, the BMXers didn't like the skateboarders, and the skateboarders didn't like the rollerbladers.
The skiers didn't like the snowboarders, and
it's the same, it's this separation. When really, the more you get into it, the more we are all the same, we work the same way.
The reason I say that's very interesting, because I've never heard it explained on a molecular level like you just said. But it's very interesting because one thing, again, I'm a very observant person. One thing I have always seen is, I always say, like, a lot of the tensions, so let's say the illnesses that you're saying that are caused, the tensions are towards people that are almost the closest to us. Yeah. So in school, the Caribbeans didn't like the Africans. Like, it was just a weird underlying thing for no reason, but it was a thing. And like, we were the cooler ones, like being the Caribbean, the music was big and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And the Africans were just like, we used to cuss them and so on and so forth. Then we had the Albanians that didn't like the Kosovans. And then we had the Moroccans that didn't like it. And I'm like, but out of everybody, you guys all look closest to each other. Yeah. So it's interesting that you said, like, two cells can divide, which is basically the same cell, but because they don't recognize, or they choose to recognize the slight differences, that's what causes illness, or in what I'm talking about, it causes tension. Yeah. And it causes arguments, wars, fights, this, that, blah, blah, blah. But it was like really a big thing. And I've always noticed, I was like, why is it always the ones that are the closest that are the most like aggressive towards each other?
Yeah.
And I just, even though, like I said, just you breaking it down like that makes it 10 times more interesting. But it just seems to be something that's in us to want to do. But even on a bigger scale, we are all the same.
Yeah.
And it is just us looking at our differences that creates tension, but we're the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think with that, the way we express ourselves comes from our cultural background.
Yeah.
So like in England, we've been there before where you guys love dancing all the time.
Yeah.
I love dancing, but it takes me a little while to warm up to get into it. So you guys just go straight in. And it's this, as we're born onto the planet, we're striving to find who we are individually. But who we are individually is our mind, it's the makeup of our development. And I think that may be why we kept going back to martial art, because we can do all sorts of like flips, tricking, all sorts of stuff, skateboarding, everything. But the martial arts for me, the bit that kept me going back was the development.
Yeah.
So I realised the quickest and the most profound changes were happening from that practice. And then it's then developed with people like Ido Porter, where this practice has come up, whereas I knew what I was actually doing and why I was doing it. Can you sort of talk a little bit about how you've changed and developed, because you've gone through obviously points fighting world champion, kickboxing world champion, cross into MMA, you've done the boxing, you've done the bare knuckle boxing, and now you're on the biggest platform in the world. But that developed from you. Do you even realise how much you've developed as a human being through the process?
It's weird. Like I think I do tap in and tap out. So I think sometimes as we all do, sometimes we're just living life and not really paying attention to what's going on. And in the earlier stages, especially as a kid, I'm just going based on what I'm seeing. I learn really well from being visual. So I'm a visual learner. Like I used to sit, and because my dad used to be, he'd be like, obviously because the kids would fight first, as you know, then the adults would go and fight. But when we finished fighting, he's like, stop messing about. You should be sitting down. Like, you remember just a representative sitting down watching. And because of that, even though I was annoyed at the time, because I just want to go play, I was annoyed at the time, I'm sitting there watching all of these amazing athletes fighting and so on and so forth, which I registered and took in. And it took me ages for it to actually download, shall I say, and click. And I went for years, as much as I love being a part of competition, I wasn't winning anything. So as a kid, people in general were very competitive, but as kids, you really want to win. And it was very difficult to keep driving hours up to different competitions and then losing and then having to drive back, listening to everybody else and watching everybody else winning. But as you say, I was obviously going through certain changes, and at the time I wouldn't have recognized it. When I did change and something clicked and I was, gaining success from it, then I was able to go back and be like, oh, I see what I'm doing here. Like certain things were just autopilot. And it's weirdly enough, up until I actually got to MMA and found Alexis as a coach, was an amazing coach, and he's very detailed, very scientific about how he does things. When I got to him, he's like, oh yeah, you do that because you don't like, what are you talking about? Like I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, basically you keep moving your foot this way and then all of a sudden that person moves that way. And I was like, it was so instinctive for me that I'd never broken it down as in A, B, C. I was just like, oh, that's just, I just feel it almost. And to be fair, I have to say that crossing into MMA has helped me recognize a lot of my progressions but I'm like, I get it now. I used to do, that's why I do this. And I would go back and really analyze and start breaking down things more. But a lot of the times beforehand, I was just in free flow, almost, just from observation. And I have to say, so those changes going into boxing, MMA, changes of coach, helped me, because everyone coach's style is different. My dad would encourage that free flowing style because it's working for me. He's like, keep just feeling it, this, that. And obviously he'd give me guidance, but I want you to play, I want you to enjoy. Alexis was slightly different, and he's like, I want you to understand what you're doing. so you can intentionally create it, not just come across it. You know what I mean? And I think it's important to have both. Some people struggle. I think this is why I struggle. I'm composed in the lights because I'm just feeling it. Yeah. I'm enjoying the feeling of what's going on. Some people can be overwhelmed by the class as stresses of what's going on. But yeah, I think it's taken the changes for me to go back and go, okay, and actually break down specifics. But for a long time, I was just in a flow state almost. Yeah. But I have, especially now, so my mind's changed to the point where I am a lot more analytical about past, how I'm going to progress, this and everything, and it's difficult because I'm trying to manage how I'm normally to how I can, to this new mind that I've got now and how it fits in the thing, because sometimes it can affect you mentally because I'm now thinking too much, whereas now before I'm just like just go and do it, you know what I mean? So it's having a balance, but also just the awareness. And I think something that people just don't have in general is just that self-awareness, and everyone's very critical of things that they see away from them but not of themselves. And I think one thing I've always known is when I can understand myself in terms of what makes me do what, it was so much easier to manipulate other people during fighting, because I was like, I'll twitch and I'm like, I get what you're doing, but I just feel it and I'm just like, okay, I can push him into a spin kick, I can push him into this and push him that. But yeah, it's taken this time. But if I had to give it to somebody, I have to say it's important to enjoy the moment, but it's equally important to then analyze what you've done and actually try to understand, but not beforehand. If you put that analytical brain on beforehand, it can become stress.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. I think it's really interesting. So Dr. Caroline Leaf, she says about thinking, feeling and choosing. So all of our choices come through this process, think, feel, choose, but we also have the flip side of it where we feel and then the thoughts come out of the feeling and then the choices play.
Okay.
And so then you would say, well, okay, play is the highest form of research. Like you're checking the angles, you're dancing, you're understanding. And again, these are things that sort of Einstein and people like you don't talk about all the time. Yeah. But that play thing, you haven't lost it ever. Yeah. And that's why we talk about the mat masters, the big fat black belts that sit on the side of the mat in the gym, and they say they've been practicing martial arts for 30 years. And it's like, no, you did about 4 years, you got a black belt, and then you stopped.
Exactly.
So the play is what keeps you going. Mm-hmm. But if we think, feel and choose, thinking is what you're talking about maybe with Alexis, where he's analysing it and he's giving you a big understanding, like a pyramid with a wider base. The wider the base, the taller the pyramid, and you're trying to get to the top. Exactly. And you're aiming for the top. The other side that I found out that the play can go a long way, but a pyramid is three-dimensional, so without the other sides to it, we don't get there. And sometimes if we just play, we reach a ceiling. And a lot of the fighters I've noticed this happens to. They want to do it because they're tough, their chin gets them a certain way, their fitness gets them a certain way, then they get a loss and they bottom out, they become depressed, they can't get back to where they were because the fun's gone. And I think maybe the two approaches together is probably why you're so successful.
100%, 100%. Like I said, I've just been fortunate. It wasn't something that I had to go and research and look into. I've been fortunate to have my father as a coach, which helped me express one element of that, and then Alexis as a coach, and Street Fighters as a team that's helped me express the other element of that. So like I said, I've been fortunate, but it's nice. It's definitely, looking back at everything, is like, as you say, you need all corners to be able to kind of go to the top.
To get to that top, and obviously you're on the way there. It's going in the right direction. So with the state of martial arts, if we look at the actual industry as it is at the moment, we've got all sorts of stuff on YouTube from people knocking other people over without having to touch them. We've got this like quasi martial arts weird stuff going on. And then one of those people gets exposed when they come across an MMA fighter, they just give them a good punch. Then we've got the Olympic style where they've taken out the dynamic, explosive movements and it's not as entertaining as it was because it's all points based. Then we've got Wacko taking kickboxing possibly to the Olympics, but it doesn't look as if there's some very good people on the board of Wacko, but I've been to tournaments recently where I've caught people on the board of Wacko putting children in the wrong categories just so they got home with medals. The size of the medals, like we used to have 6 foot trophies, and then they went to like 3 or 4 foot. Now sometimes you come home with a little medal. The prices have gone up, and so what would you say, like, because we didn't do martial arts for those reasons, they were all bonuses. We got the trophies, did that. But the real reasons to going into martial arts are massive. However, nobody talks about that. We just get the generic bully-proof your children. It's like, actually, what about the developmental side, learning about the nervous system, how to overcome the fight, flight, fear responses. That's where the Tim Fletcher's information that we brought down. So Tim Fletcher delivered a course for us on complex trauma. You came to the event, but how does that sort of change your aspect of what should be in the martial arts and taught in classes compared to the way we were taught it?
Even down to, like, there's one aspect, like I'd say, that my dad never taught me. I always talk about this, and it's like even like the dietary side of things. The way I do things is so the wrong way in terms of like health. Obviously, I've learned how to do what I need to do to get my weight down and but just general health stuff. But it's because he didn't have that information and that knowledge. And as you say, we focus on, I think everything is yin and yang. There are opposites to everything. And a lot of the times when I look into whatever industry it is, everyone focuses on just heavily on one side of things. So, and even now in MMA, it's like in the gym, again, they're very old school coaches as well. And they're like, all the other stuff, you learn it yourself, figure it out. We're not going to tell you. They can help and they have certain knowledge in it, but that's not what we're interested in. We come for war. So like I said, there's that one side of it that's it's top heavy. But we should learn, because there's so many guys that I see in the gym that if they could get the Tim Fletcher style thought process and understanding of self, they would be able to perform so much better because they have a better understanding of self at the end. Every gym has multiple guys that with that potential. Like they're like, no, there's this guy in my gym who is unbelievable. Everyone's got that story. Everyone. Because there's some super talented people that in the gym when there's no stress, there's none of like all these things that are away because it's not for money, it's not, you're doing it for purely the enjoyment and just to learn. And then when it comes to translating it, when there is the stresses, completely. And I've seen it multiple times. I continue to see it in guys in my gym. And it's because we don't focus, or there is no learning on that side as well. The mental side. Again, I feel like I've been lucky in the sense that I just pay attention to stuff that just made sense to me. Like just almost like it's just common sense to do this or not watch this beforehand and not do this. So I kind of figured it out. But then there's the other side of it. Like I said, I was in such a flow state that I was also protected in that sense. Mentally, certain things just didn't apply to me because I just didn't care. Whereas people, like for example, people will have a certain schedule of exactly what they're going to do up until the lead up to the fight. Whereas I have none whatsoever. I just live. I get there, my room, if you walked into my hotel room the day before or the day of the fight, you will see my family all in there, laughing, joking, screaming, shouting, in fun. It's just fun, high energy, music's playing, we're all dancing. As you say, we love to dance, we're all dancing, singing, this, that, blah, blah, blah. You'd be like, wait, have you fought already? Because it feels like you're celebrating a fight already. Or you go to my changing room just before I'm walking out, and it's the same thing. Laughing, joking, singing, obviously doing the pad work and stuff, but then I'm just smiling. I'm just enjoying myself. And I've been fortunate that that's protected me from any stresses, because I'm regardless of the result, and I don't even think of it. I'm just like, in my head, I know I've done everything I need to do to get here. So regardless of the result, now I'm just gonna have fun. You know what I mean? I don't want to add any more stress. But even for me, if there were certain elements that I had learned from like the likes of that Tim Fletcher, and I actually break down that certain aspects of my mentality, and I think I'm going to need it even more now. Like I said, I'm becoming a lot more analytical. Therefore, there was a lot more pressures and stresses that seep in because I'm thinking about these things. But if I can, I think it's okay to think about them if I can also manage what's important and what's not.
Yeah.
And manage and learn the understanding of what my body's going through as to why it's happening. So then I can be like, oh, okay, it's fine. This is okay to feel. This is okay to feel. This is okay to feel. And sometimes I even used to just lie to myself as well. Like, everybody has a nervous feeling. I don't care who you are, but I used to just change the term of nervous to excited feeling.
Yeah.
Oh, my body's just excited. I'm about to go to war. So, and I'm talking every single day in the gym up until today. If I'm in the gym and my coach is like, oh, okay, we're going to spar, immediately my body tells me I have to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
Immediately. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. And it's just like, and that could be classed as nervous feeling, but it happens as soon as he says I have to do anything.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yeah, just my body's excited. He just wants to make sure there's no barriers in the way. So he just wants to empty the system so I have nothing else to think about. I just change the narrative. Whether that's true or not, I believe in that narrative.
Yeah.
So then it allows me to be like, yeah. And he knows I'm gonna do this. He's like, pad up, and he's like, yeah, go to the toilet. I just run to the toilet, come back, and then I'm just ready.
Yeah.
So again, I've had mixed journeys, but like I said, like that understanding nowadays is going to be even more important for me because of how I'm developing as a person.
As well, it's interesting what you said about needing weeks. I get exactly the same thing with sparring, but also if I go running, like I literally start running, and about 3 minutes into the run, I've got to do it. So I obviously try to go first.
Yeah.
But I then found out through the Tim Fletcher information and Stephen Porter's polyvagal theory. Obviously, your central nervous system, the nerves are connected, especially the vagal nerves are connected to different areas of the body.
Yeah.
And the vagal nerve, which I believe is the longest nerve in the body, is connected to all the main organs. But we get shut down. Our fear response causes our voice to shut down, so it's not as loud. That's why some people go very high pitched once they get angry or upset. And then obviously the vagal nerve, it regulates us, so it changes your heart rate, it changes your digestive system, but it's also attached to the bladder. So that's your body's preempting, I need to get rid of this in order to move around properly.
Exactly.
So it's all the information's there.
And that's what I mean, even if you just had an understand, just that simple explanation for a lot of fighters, because that nervous feeling for them is just like, oh man, like it can be daunting. And this is where people then don't perform. Or they lie to themselves in the wrong way. They're like, oh no, it's just the nerves. I don't need to go to the toilet. And then they don't go. And they just feel, again, your body's just feeling off and not functioning at its maximum. So, and this is my point, as you say, I feel like in martial arts now, we've just had years of one element of it, and there needs to be other sides of it. I'm sorry, but I have to ignore all those, like the classes that you're talking about that do all those like 1-inch punches, like people sending people flying, and ignore all of them. I don't care what you say, that is nonsense. These guys are just trying to, they've found a product and they're trying to just max sell it. That's why a lot of these guys don't go to competitions and stuff, is they stay in there and you'll just see videos like that online. But if you actually want to train and actually learn how to defend yourself, then you need to go to a more credible place and of true martial arts. But like I say, one thing they are missing, which is weird though, because, I'm sorry to change, but the little dragons courses and stuff that we do for kids like 4 to 6 year old, and we have another kids zone course like for different age groups, is tailored specifically for how the development of that child is, and then we turn it off once we get to adult. And I find it weird. I feel like it's weird that I enforce almost the mental side of things even myself, when teaching kids, and as adults, we're like, okay, enough of that crap now.
We finished that process.
Finish it,
yeah.
but we haven't. It just differs now. As an adult, we just have to look at it differently. It's not the same as like we go through stranger danger and things like that. It's like obviously to help them in life, but also just to manage that how they're supposed to be thinking.
Yeah.
In different scenarios, and really just preparing them for the whole thing, not just punching and kicking.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, we just get rid of it when we get an adult. It's like, okay, just punching and kicking now, but yeah, it's definitely something, and I know you're working on that as well. It's definitely something that we need to enforce more. Something that I'm going to be doing soon. I'm actually develop an app to do training drills, and it's something I'm going to speak to you about anyway.
Yep.
And that side of things is important.
Yeah.
And I know it's important, therefore I want people to have access to that, even if they're not getting it in their gym, because a lot of the old school coaches are not going to be willing to change now what's worked for them this far. But doesn't mean that people like myself that are still in it but are slowly going to be heading out soon can adjust and create things for the next generation that's coming. So it's not just going to be about fitness, strength, mobility, flexibility, but it's also about your mind.
Yeah.
It's also about how you prepare that, and obviously I'm going to need the help of you guys to make sure we get it right, and just help even those small statements that you made, saying it on the app, just to say, just understand this is what's going on in your body, so just be aware of that. Giving people those little nuggets, I definitely think it's going to help people massively.
Yeah. Something you said as well there, so if you take it from the other perspective, so you're just about to do some sparring, you need to use a toilet, and then you say to yourself, I need to use the toilet because I'm scared. And then you beat yourself up, you say, okay, the inner critic pops up, and you got this voice that goes, why am I scared of sparring? Because I'm a wimp, I'm not good enough, I'm not tough enough, and then it spirals down into catastrophe. This is a shame-based issue, but that is what separation is. It's like you're separating an area of your body and saying, something's wrong with me because other people don't, but no one I guarantee you there's other kids in the room, there's other parents, other adults, that is never mentioned. So shame stops us talking, which disconnects us, and then eventually we disconnect from our own body. So if you've got an area of your body where you're disconnected from it, that's where the inflammation starts, the illness sets in, and 20 years down the line, the illness can be in those areas because of the shame.
The common narrative here is the fact that the disconnection, the separation, without understanding or communication of that.
Yeah.
So like it's just something that I feel like this happens in absolutely everything. We spoke about briefly with the cultures and so on and so forth, but also relationships.
Yeah.
I'm in a new relationship now, so fairly new, but I feel like I've known this girl forever. And one thing that is clear and why like I've got such a connection with this woman is because she knows how to communicate effectively, and we don't have any issues, not arguing. As in we have issues, but it's just spoken about.
Yeah.
We just have a conversation about it, and it's like, okay, that makes sense, and then we keep moving on.
Yeah.
There's no shouting, arguments, this, that, blah, blah, blah. But I always say that separation will cause, and that lack of communication to understand those separations causes the illnesses, the arguments, the racism, the this, the that. It seems to apply in absolutely every area of life. It's great, including the internally.
Yeah.
It's mad.
Yeah. Even there, so we've got like, you do something wrong, you regret it, you then are remorseful and you take accountability for the thing that you've done that you regret. You show the remorse, you do the apology, you make up for it, so you've redeemed yourself, and then you reconcile, and the reconciliation is the bringing back together of this breakdown in communication and disconnection. But people nowadays like okay, so why did you invite other people into your family, and now we've got this massive martial arts family of people that I know I can call at 5 a.m. if I need to something's up. So you've had the modelling, like you just said, from your parents that actually we're all a family and we can all bring other people in, and then you've shown that modelling again and again and again. Just remind me of a story actually. But this separation and the modelling that happens gives you the solutions, and if you don't have the modelling because the information is not readily available, the gap that's between, oh, my bladder's causing me issues, so I need a wee before I spar. It's just a piece of information that was missing that can send your entire life into separation. And you end up in pieces and people don't know who they are. It's this same process of when we're little kids. First of all, we have to be fed, but then at a certain point we end up trying to feed ourselves, and we get the ice cream and it goes everywhere. And eventually, through the feedback that we're getting, we find where our mouth is. And then it's like, okay, well, once we can write A, B, C and spell words and things, we've given up on the connection of our body. We think just because I can move my fingers and I can walk and I can run, but we've taken it on a much higher level. It's like, what can you physically do with your body by really connecting with it and understanding it? And then there's people out there like Portal who they're so connected to their body that they get freedom through disconnection. So there's lots of different ways into this path of finding it. But it just reminded me, I don't know if you remember this or not. So you came down to Hastings and we were doing a victory boxing night. And then the next morning, me, you and Marvin were walking out the front of the White Rock Hotel. And there was a little kid, probably this big, and he had a karate belt on and he was crying his eyes out. And this is, again, it's another story. That kid doesn't have a clue who you or were on that day. But he bumped into the right three people at the right time. So this kid had run out of his karate grading because he thought he was failing. And he thought that because he was failing, he was going to get in trouble with his parents. So he ran out, and he'd run probably half a mile away, and he got to the pier, which is really. I was followed when I was a kid, his age, by a paedophile from the pier all the way into the town. But this kid bumps into us three, and we said, "Why are you crying?" And then you had a chat with him and was like, no, you'll be able to get back and you'll be able to do the grading, you'll pass it and everything. But he couldn't remember the name of the club, he didn't have any proper uniform on. But he remembered his grand's phone number. So we phoned his grand and put him in a taxi and we sent him back. But that little kid, he has no idea that he was stood with Michael Page. But that's it, it's welcoming someone into the family because he had that martial arts belt on. But this is something, you have achieved something in your life that most people don't get ever. You're happy with yourself, you're happy externally, and you can treat other people with your own happiness. And I've seen it bring people up so many times. And is that something that you're aware of, that you're doing that? Or like not many people, they wear masks, most people. They'll be nice to somebody, but somebody that can't do anything for them or validate them or give them anything, they're completely horrible to them. And I think that they're the worst type of people.
100%.
But you're aware that you've even got that type of consistency in your mental state and your emotional state.
That's an interesting question. I feel like I've got there's got maybe a couple of sides to it. I think from observing my dad again and seeing how he's treated people, I've kind of just, I'm so used to it. I remember when he first told me to take one of his classes and teach, he just was like, I'll just do what I do. There was no real instruction he's like, you know how the class runs, just do what I do. There was no real instruction of, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And I just took on his persona. And just like start teaching. And I remember even afterwards, I was 12 at the time when I took it. It was an adults class, beginners class, but still. And I remember people asking me afterwards, not after a few months, because I was taking it for a while. Oh, how old are you? And I said my age. They were like, are you kidding me? Like we thought you was at least 18 or something. Yes, I was tall for my age, but I didn't look 18, nowhere near. But just because of the persona that I put on. So I think that's just stayed with me in terms of like I've seen him and observed him how he gifts so many people and just helps so many people and always wants to help. But I also feel like, or I know I do, I have a bit of a hero's complex, which is something that I work through in terms of like, because not everybody needs to be saved or everybody needs to be helped very differently. But I always just want to get like help, and sometimes to my own detriment. And it's again something that my dad used to do as well. He'd help he'd have £5 in his pocket and find a way to give you £10, and I'll be struggling, in £5 debt. So, and that was a something again like other people. So even my mum used to say like you can't help somebody out of a hole standing in the hole with them. So you need to learn how to figure it out yourself, so then you can at least drop down a ladder or something. But you need to be in a position of help. But I'll be in that hole trying to help everybody, and so like I said, there's certain things I've had to work out. But it's a nice trait to have, but there are negatives to it. But so I'm aware of it, but I also attribute it to, I also apply it to too many things.
Yeah.
I need to kind of pull it back. And sometimes I've almost like, I remember, was it last year or a couple of years ago, I was like, I'm going to accept that that's a part of me, but what I need to do is put barriers or things in the way that prevent me from being myself, if you know what I mean. So even down to like the amount of people I've given money to and stuff, and not I don't care for the finances like that, but I think I just want to help. But it got to the point where like again I'm damaging myself and it's still trying to give people. So I'm like, cool, I've now got financial advisors and accounts that like if even £1 comes out of my account, like they can call me and be like, what's happening here?
What's that for?
And just that in a way is just annoying. So and then it also gives me something to blame as well. So people's like, oh, can you lend me? I'm like, I can't. Like financial advisors, like and it's technically still my choice, but I've just put things in the way that prevent me from doing stuff, doing that kind of stuff that is then going to be negative to me, you know what I mean, and then put me back in the hole and not in a position that I can actually help people. So I have recognized it, but I've recognized it through the negative effect that it's had on myself. But now, like I say, I've acknowledged the fact that okay, I am that. I just need to make sure I manage that better. Even down to with my partners, usually she'd be like, you can't be nice to everybody, and people take it the wrong way. So even having her there and close friends of mine that will also say the same thing. They're like, just be careful, like arms length here, this, that. And I've learned for myself over the time. But yes, I have recognized it. But like I say, more so from the fact that it's affected me negatively. And I'm not saying don't help people, because like I said, it's a lovely trait to have. And even down to, it's so funny that you said about that kid, because 5 days ago, there was a kid literally outside the house, and his mum was trying to walk him down the road, and he's, I'm not going nowhere. And I was like, Michael, leave it alone, Michael, leave it alone. I hate sport kids. I can't stand it. Like, again, because of the discipline that we come back from, and even the way that I would teach kids, I'm like, none of my children could ever act like that. And then I was like, leave it alone. And then he just dropped on the floor, like dead weighted on the floor, and she's got stressed, and you can see how stressed she was. She's got another little kid there, and she's trying to walk down the road. And I was like, I just walked over there. And I was like, I just spoke to her, I was like, are you okay? She's like, yeah, and she's stressed out. And then she just walked off. I think she's a bit embarrassed. And he just sat there. And I just turned, again, the thing is funny because I know I'll do certain things, and I can also feel my dad's energy come through me. And I was like, what's your problem? And he's like, my mum won't give me the game. I was like, would you give you the game if he was acting like that? And I just took him on one, like I was just like ripping him, but like communicating with him logically and asking him the same questions. And I was like, look, I said, is that your mother? He's like, yeah. I was like, that's the one person in the world that you want to be nice to. But talking about niceness, being nice is free, and the only thing that you're going to be able to get free in this world, nothing else. And that's the one person you want to be nice to always. So get up, be nice, and then maybe afterwards you might get it. But even if you don't, that's one person you stay nice to. And I was like, are you ready to go now? He's like, I was like, okay, see you later. He jumped up, walked over, and it was nice. I didn't tell him to do anything specific, but he went up to his mum, gave her a hug, gave her a kiss, and then just see them walking down the road. And it's not, again, I didn't need to get myself involved, but I struggled to just not be that. Again, it's like a hero complex, and I'm not expecting anything in return, but it's just something that is just innately in me. Which I attribute to my dad and how he was. And like I said, the fact that the mask that you say that people put on, I think I've just taken his mask and put it on myself. And like I say, there's certain things that there was negative effects to that, but this is me learning myself. But yeah, I definitely have seen it.
I think there's a negative connotation around the mask, whereas the mask should be tools. You should have a bag of masks.
Exactly.
It's which one is going to serve you best in the situation.
Exactly.
But also through that process, because the masks are technically boundaries, and if we use the mask with the right people in the right way, we learn that we don't need them with certain people. It's not safe to be vulnerable and authentic with everyone. There's some really unsafe people.
Exactly.
But those lessons are very valuable. It sounds like you understand yourself in both ways. You understand, okay, so a positive thing cannot always be positive.
Exactly.
Even like some poison, small amounts of it can be curative for other things. This is the important thing to remember. So that brings us to the whole point of these podcasts. So it's called The Real Work. Whether we're ever doing the real work, who knows? But the idea of it is developmental education for people that are on a path that we've travelled already. So we know a form of a path or the path. If you call it the path, it's probably not the path. But so physical, mental, emotional, and financial. Because if you follow those paths and you can master, or at least get some tools to help grasp and manipulate your physical being, your mental state, your emotional state, and your financial state, you get more freedom in life. And I try to explain to people this separation. When things separate, they become isolated. And loneliness is one of the biggest killers in the world now, because loneliness causes deregulation of the nervous system. All sorts of illnesses can onset from that. Then you end up not having anyone to talk to, depression sets in, and then people end up suicide attempts, all sorts of stuff, which we've seen in a big amount over the last few years. So with this developmental sort of process that people can go through, if you reconnect with people, like we live on a whole planet, we've been lucky enough to travel all over the place together, and it's like a big playground. The planet is a huge playground, which then goes, well, I can develop through the highest form of research, which is play, on the whole planet. Whereas there are people out there now, there's loads of guys our age, they've got no friends. The only thing they can do is sit on a computer game, and they can talk to people. But I don't know if we talk about this about Xbox and PlayStation. Some of the abuse that people give each other over those headsets is unbelievable. Like I have a sister who passed away from cancer, and I've been told on the Xbox by a little kid who's probably only about 10 that he wants my mum to die of cancer. I say to them, if this is the way you're going to live your life, you're not going to be happy in a few minutes. But what would you sort of recommend for people? Like the first start thing is like, we'll go to a martial arts class, but a lot of people, they haven't even got enough gumption because of their traumas and their isolation to be able to get their own energy up to do that. So you sort of spoke about an act a minute ago, possibly, but what sort of pieces of advice would you give people? Where would someone need to start looking? Because the martial arts there, you've taken it and you've probably been in rooms where people are doing sort of drugs growing up. You've been to nightclubs, you've seen here, but this martial arts journey or this developmental journey is always kept a separation from the negative. How have you seen that play out in other people?
I would, if I was like advising whether it be a parent and their children or the actual individual itself, I think one thing that helped me is just being surrounded by a community separate to the community that I was raised in. And the reason I say separate too is because we're not all fortunate to be raised in a community of the best people. And even if you are, there's still negative influences that can sway you. And I think having opposing views, and if like reading a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, having those opposing views allows you to really see like, okay, this is not just the only way to live. And one thing that I think is the most important, which I didn't realize until later, but the fact that I traveled from such an early age. I think one of the first competitions I did, and this was without my mum or my dad, I went to Germany to do a kickboxing competition at 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm not with my parents. I was looked after by Andy Brooks, old school a kickboxing fighter. So he was watching me, and this is where I literally spending time with like Robbie Hughes, were all like kids. Robbie Hughes, Chloe Bruce, like all those people that were all these like little kids running around. And but when I got back to my reality, it breaks it completely, because people like, you get back and people are like, oh, this person had said this and that, and I'm just like, I just don't care. Your world is so much bigger just from traveling. So anybody, even down to people like that are going through depression, are in that kind of state of mind, one thing is just changing your position and going somewhere very different to your reality. Seeing and experience other people's realities that are better or worse than you, but just from a completely different perspective. I think one thing that is key for understanding is new perspectives on life and on the same subject. I don't have to agree with you, I just want to understand your perspective of it. And it's like, oh, that's interesting that you think that way. Because we could all look at the same artwork and it could bring up, we could see it completely different. We could also look at the same clip online or video or whatever, and we'd all come up with separate opinions based on our own traumas and how it made us feel specifically. But it's important to understand that that is not, doesn't mean it's correct, and it's not the only perspective. It's not something that everybody saw. Don't think because you saw it, it's like, oh, everybody must have seen the same thing. Not at all. So the key thing for me, and what I've seen with a lot of people, is they haven't traveled enough, so they spend time. So the areas that I was from, there's all these guys that end up getting into the drugs, just going down the same path. And it's just because their ends is all that they know. Their whole world is a couple of estates. And one of them is the enemy estate. Like one of these guys across the road, I don't like them. These estate, there's the girl that's down the road that I like, and this girl and that guy and this and that. It's like, okay, cool, but you travel, you come back and you're like, mate, this is the smallest place comparatively in the world. Why am I stressing about all of this kind of stuff? And I think travel is key. Meeting new people, like new cultures, is key. And like I said, just understanding it from different people's perspective, and then joining a community of people separate and away from your own community. So again, the traveling for me at a young age helped, but I was already part of a community which led me to traveling in the kickboxing. I got into salsa at one point. Just like I said, Ed already said, I love dancing. Got into salsa, and it just opened a whole new world. I was like, mate, I walked past and places that you wouldn't even look at, I'm like, they do salsa classes there. Oh, there's a salsa bar here. It's like, sorry. There's a whole new world just in one community, and it can really just change just everything. Like I said, things that I would normally walk past and see, I just wouldn't acknowledge. Has meaning to me now. So I always love to jump in and out of different communities and learn new things, become a student again, which is probably why, again, I can't sit still even fighting. And I was kickboxing and I was boxing, I was bare knuckle fighting, MMA and points. Even in points, when I did points, there's different stages or different phases that you can get into. You can do points, you can do light continuous, you can do full contact, and you can do forms. And I pretty much did everything. And most people kind of get to one, maybe tap into another one, like points and continuous is, a lot of people, will do maybe that, but not really anything else. If you was a forms guy, you're just a forms guy. You didn't really do too much anything else. For me, I had to do everything. Like, I just love learning something new and doing it and being a part of another community. And learning from other people. But in terms of for other people, for me, two key things: travel, go somewhere else, join a community. And I always tell people to go through the martial arts element, just because I know that journey.
It works,
But like I said, I've done breakdancing. There's a cool community of breakdancers. I was skiing. There's a cool community of skiers. I did football, cool community. Salsa. Like I've jumped in and out of so many different communities, and seriously, they all bring you, especially the social element, especially for people that are feeling lonely. it can be as simple as that, and people just welcome you because now I feel associated with you. It has nothing to do, these places, a lot of these places I went to, has nothing to do with your skin color, your culture, your religion, your background, whatever. We're all doing the same thing that we enjoy.
Yeah.
So that becomes the focal point, and then everything else is secondary. You know what I mean? In our gym, there's so many people from all walks of life, but nobody gives a shit. No one cares.
It's all about the training.
It's all about the training. It's all about just training hard, fighting hard, you know, just being the best, and everyone, we're all in the same boat, traveling to try and get to the top, and we're doing it together. Like, I need my team, but yeah, for a lot of people that are struggling, and I've seen struggle, I advise them on the same thing. Sometimes just get away from your reality.
Yeah.
You can. It's again, if you're struggling financially, it could be a staycation. Just go there's so many places. Again, people just don't travel outside of their areas.
Yeah.
And like in America, it happens a lot. I see a lot of Americans that don't have passports because they can go from state to state. But sometimes even that's good enough.
Yeah.
They go to a different state, it feels like a whole new world.
Yeah.
Just do that. The same thing in the UK. It's smaller, but there's so much you can do just driving a couple of hours that way and a couple of hours that way, and you know what I mean? So just changing your reality, and you don't need anybody to go with. You just need to be open to the experience.
Do it, yeah.
And just do it. Just do it.
Yeah. So this is from the perspective of reconnecting, being what we call your authentic self, which is, it's not a term I particularly like, but getting yourself out there and meeting these people. The flip side of that is what's going on in the country at the moment, and it's not just our country, in the world. Things are very strange.
Everything.
We discussed something the other day. We've both done a huge amount of refereeing in the past, so we spot situations. We've been in a huge amount of actual fights ourselves, both in the boxing ring, in the cage, and outside street fights ourselves. So we have an eye for noticing certain details and things. We sat and we went through the Manchester airport incident, and there's two sides to every coin. There's two sides to every
argument. The first video that came out was different.
Yeah.
It felt different.
And the two videos that we both saw, we sort of talked about it. We both saw a very similar set of things.
Yeah.
It's absolutely wrong, in my opinion, to harass or hit a police officer. However, we have seen, I have been treated badly by police officers. I've had the worst kind of shooting. I've been falsely arrested for different things before. And you've probably been stopped and searched, all sorts of things. Like, so we have to remember that even doctors and nurses have committed murders in this country. So things are not always quite as they seem. We talked about it's this separation, so it's the police versus a set of people at the airport. Then we can talk about skin colour, then we can talk about cultural differences. I lived in Saudi Arabia for a little while, which was interesting as well. So that incident at the airport, what I saw, it looked like a policeman, and again, we can only speculate on the videos we've seen. We have not got the full story because we weren't there. But it looked like a policeman walked up and put his hand, he grabbed the guy's arm and he put his hand on the back of his neck and forced his head forwards. There's no sound, so you don't even know if they announced that they were police.
Exactly.
And if the guy's facing this way, it's difficult. But what do you think this basically incited a huge amount of anger? And then we've had the stabbing of the kids, which is in, is it Stockport? I think it was something like that. So this is just disgusting. These things shouldn't happen. Another thing, I don't know if people know this, I've got to still check this one out, but the kiddie that did that stabbing, he was at the BBC in a TV advert, apparently.
Yeah, they released that,
But we all know what's happened at the BBC over the years. So, and from my understanding of trauma, kids don't do stuff like that unless something terrible has happened to them. And this is speculation, but the kid's been to the BBC. There's all sorts of stuff on the news at the moment about the newsreader who's just been sent to prison for being a paedophile. So the world is a mess. The separations everywhere. The lines are getting blurred. With AI, videos can be edited. You can't tell what's real and what's not real. But how can we sort of get it out to the kids out there and then you've got the Tommy Robinson supporters. But Tommy Robinson's obviously done an interview with Jordan Peterson recently as well.
I haven't seen that.
It's quite interesting.
Okay.
And he's fighting
really like
for grooming gangs. He's saying that there are a huge amount of grooming gangs in the country. I know firsthand how many kids are suffering abuse because I get thousands of messages all the time about complex trauma, what's happened to people. What's your take on what's going on at the moment in terms of like do we start with the Manchester Airport thing and the separation there? It's a big topic, isn't it?
It's a big topic and it is very difficult and it's very scary. Even like my missus, she's like it's getting very scary now. Like it really is. From her point of view, she doesn't feel safe anymore in the country that she was born and raised in. Just because her skin color. And what all this incited violence and stuff. Now, it's weird though because I look at it from a point of view where it's hierarchy. I don't even look at the skin colors and stuff. For me, it's the hierarchy, and the reason I say that as well is because it's a fact that whatever they put out on the news increases. So, we unfortunately they're very sheepish people. And if they see something that goes, and I remember when they started putting out acid attacks, and then the increase of acid attacks, it went rampant. When they speak about suicide, the increase of suicide goes rampant. When they speak about depression and mental health, the increase of all these things rampant. I think they have a part to play in what they want to be happening at the time. So it's very difficult because I don't know for sure, but based on things that have constantly happened, it feels like they're happy for these things, they're happy for these separations because they're doing stuff in the background, or these separations allow them to pass laws that in the long term is going to help them gain more control.
Which is what's happening.
Like
people have literally gone to prison in the last couple of days for writing something on Twitter or Facebook.
Exactly.
And when you can't have freedom of speech and talk about things, the other one that happens is, so for me to talk about something where somebody from a different religion has done something which I class as bad, I get marked as a racist because of it. So it's confusion by contradiction.
Exactly.
They're going to give you the contradicting argument in order to tarnish who you are. And this is a manipulation tactic of a narcissist.
Exactly.
Which is what's out there.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why I find it difficult to jump straight in on the smaller stories. I'll analyze the smaller stories. Like I said, we had a conversation about the Manchester Airport and how it kind of went past, how it went by, and so on and so forth. And we can talk about that. But I always like to try and look at it from this point as well, because everybody, and I still don't understand how people do this. They seem to think that because somebody's wearing that uniform, that it means they're good. Like you say, it's been found out that doctors do this, and even when the whole COVID thing came out, it's like, well, the doctor said it's fine. And I'm like, yeah, but when you actually look at the system of things, the doctors are told what to put in. Like it's agents from the pharmaceutical companies that will say this drug does this we need to give it to your patients, and they're like, okay, cool, and they'll do it. They themselves are not the ones doing the research. So as much as I believe you're there, your intention is to help, you're also getting information and following information from people that maybe don't care to help, they want to sell. And I always like to say, if you follow the money trail, you probably get the full picture and get the story. So everyone just jumps in, it's a police officer, he shouldn't have done that. It's like, but the police officer's human and he can make mistakes, he or she can make mistakes. His
nervous system can be triggered.
And for me, the key element here, especially in this country, is the lack of training. I've seen it where there's 6 to 7 police officers trying to take down a 15-year-old kid, and they are struggling. And then in order for them to try to do so, then kicking, kneeing, punching, and that doesn't help you subdue, which is what you're supposed to be doing, that person or that kid. It's only going to put them under more panic and respond more frantically because you have zero control on what you're doing. You're getting even more frustrated because this person's now acting more frantic. And it's just a vicious cycle. It just escalates. And again, I think two things. There's that side, the physical training side, that they're lacking in.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, I can get one of our 16-year-old kids to take in the gym, take down multiple grown men, like for fun. Yeah. And then there is the communication side. People go in and they don't, and I used to say this from back in the day, even going into clubs, the bouncers on the doors have such a bad attitude that they just piss anybody off before they even got into the club. And because I can't do anything to you, you end up getting into arguments in the club because I'm now there with a bad attitude. Where if people knew how to communicate effectively, and the same with police officers. One of my good friends, Sadiq from school, he's a big guy, and he's like, he knows I'm not a physical person, like I'm physical, but he's very quick-witted. He's like, I use my mouth to help me, you know, to kind of slow down certain situations. He said he went to a domestic thing once. And as he got there, they radioed in and saying, oh, by the way, the guy's an MMA fighter. So you guys got to be like really on board, like careful and blah, blah. And he's like, oh. So he's gone there. Obviously the police are riled up now. Like MMA fighter, they got their hands on their tasers and so on and so forth. And he's like, can I just go in? He said they knocked the door. The woman's come out crying. The door's open. He sat in the corner room like, come on in, like screaming. Like he's now high in energy, and these guys are also high in energy. He's like, is it okay if I just go in by myself? And they're like, no. He's like, well, you guys are here anyway. If something goes wrong, just rush in, no problem. But let me try, please. The guy's screaming in the corner. He's walked in and sat on the couch.
Yeah.
Straight away, you've already like thrown him off. Because it's like, what? He sat on the couch. He's like, mate, talk to me, what's going on? He's like, why are you in my house for? He's like, look, I'm just chilling. And he said, just spoke to him. And I always say, it's very hard for someone to be angry while someone is not matching that energy.
Yeah.
If someone's calm and you're angry, eventually as humans, we just like to go, we like to mirror the scenario that we're in.
It's co-regulation.
Co-regulation. So we'll calm down, he'll slowly calm down. Eventually, he had a conversation with the guy. Eventually, he had the guy come over, come sit down next to me. Because he's that calm now. Yeah. Sit down next to me. They sat down and talking. He's like, mate, look, because it's a call, you know, whatever's happened, we have to take you. Yeah. I have to arrest you, blah, blah, blah. I'll put the handcuffs on, don't worry, it won't be tight. You tell me if it's too tight, I'll talk, The guy's like, no problem, mate. Yeah, I was an idiot, man. It just got out of hand, Conversation.
Yeah.
Handcuffs into the car.
Yeah, with no trouble. Yeah.
No trouble. Yeah. That's just one scenario. And I just feel like there's so many scenarios that could be dealt with just communicating. But also, if you're confident enough that if it goes sideways, I'm very trained to deal with that. It's even easier to want to communicate. I don't have to fight everybody. Yeah. But the fact that in that Manchester airport, your first thing, this guy doesn't even look like he's doing anything wrong. Again, we don't know. Yeah. But what I'm saying is he's standing by the machine, looks like he's doing something. Ticket machine, looks like he's trying to get a ticket or whatever. And he gets grabbed, and then his neck. Now, I'm sorry, you can't start that way. Yeah. Regardless, whatever you want to say, it didn't look like he was in a threatening position. Again, we don't know the full story, but there's going to be very few scenarios that's going to tell me that was the best way to go.
Especially the back of
someone
put their hand on the back and it touch you. It's intimate.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very strange place.
A very strange place, and it didn't seem like he'd explained anything quickly because he grabbed his hand, he turned around like what, and then grabbed his neck and meet that. There's not enough time to tell me that you've explained anything to this man. So again, there's that side of thing that I just feel like. When we're looking at the smaller things that these work, but on a bigger scale, there is a lot that these guys are doing. Because when COVID was rampant, these guys, just to get average Joes on the street, they're like, no, you can't walk on the street. They were ready to bring the army in. Yeah. But these guys, now you got all of these guys running around smashing windows in there, and I don't see an army anywhere, or no mention of army coming in. So again, it also says to me that they're happy for this to happen, and there's always going to be people that die for it, but they're okay because the long-term goal is to do X, Y, Z. Yeah. But again, if we zone in on the actual the individual things, we can break down. There's a lot that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and again, it's all because of the way that people can't regulate their own nervous systems, they're not trained enough. Like, I would not be a police person for the amount of money they get paid with the amount of training they've done.
Does that make sense?
It's a very dangerous job. It's stressful. They're getting.
But also, the guys that are getting in there, it's like 6 months worth of training to become a police officer.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sorry, guys. There's more stressful. It's just more stressful to try and become a train driver.
Yeah.
But it's dangerous, but it's a lot less dangerous than some of the situations. Like, I agree that we need police officers, but then these police officers should be so well trained.
Yeah.
That to the point where second people see them, they just want to fix up because they just know that that's
respect these people.
We respect these guys because one, they're not going to be rude and stuff, but two, if they want to do something to me immediately, it's done and done properly.
Yeah, I'm not outrunning it.
Yeah.
How many times do we see people being able to outrun a policeman who is not?
They're not in shape. They're not this, not that. Like, and again, it's because and if I'm correct, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this one, but I believe they do like on and off shifts. So it's like 4 days on, 4 days off type thing. So they have ample amount of time to do that training.
Someone said, this is something I'm going to have to look into, but they said a lot of it is done online now as well.
That's ridiculous.
So it's not even face to face.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Like we've seen in the past a lot of police officers come to the jiu-jitsu classes and things, and they as soon as they get an understanding of takedowns and body control, they can apply it.
They can apply it immediately,
their jobs.
and very quickly as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, even if they did it on a very basic level, they literally just did a basic classes of jiu-jitsu and grappling, it will allow them to and make, like I said, just make them feel so much more confident. I think one of the issues is they're walking into scary situations scared, and sometimes they're walking into not scary situations scared, and their response to that is so. And
again, that's what complex trauma is. It changes your outlook, and the amount of ambulance drivers, fire brigade, paramedics, nurses, doctors, police with complex trauma because of what they're seeing. They're getting secondary trauma from their jobs. And if our nervous system's going to interpret situations in the wrong way, we're going to react in the wrong way as well.
And I'm not sure the type of help that they get after those situations.
It's not
they
good.
see. It must not be good. And it's interesting as well, because I've got a friend that he was training to be a pilot, and he was going through some issues. I was speaking to him. I said, why don't you go speak to someone? He's like, mate, if I say speak to someone and then tell them that I'm trained to be a pilot, they have to immediately let someone know, and then I'd lose my license. But I was like, well, that's a stupid cycle then. So what, and they don't provide you with, so you telling me there's pilots up there that have trauma, like that they, like depression, whatever, and they're not getting help. They can't get help because they'll lose it. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't. So I prefer you be crazy and flying, have the issues and flying, than tell me. That does, like. There's so, like I said, there's so many systems we can talk about that. It's just
needs
back.
a bigger look at.
It needs a bigger look at. But like, it's the same thing for police officers. It seems like that they're going into these kind of situations. See, even I spoke to a lovely lady. She works at the dog unit. Obviously, all the dogs have to get tagged now, and with what was going on. She's an amazing. She's lovely lady. She's one of the higher ups for the police dog unit, and she had to tag my dog. She was saying like some of the stuff she does, like search and rescues, and she's dead bodies and stuff like all the time. She walks and someone got stabbed and she's looking for the body, and I'm like, it's the same thing. But do you get any? She's like, I'm just numb to it now. Like I used to cry all the time.
If it's the same as the nursing system of the NHS, they are provided a 24-hour phone line that they can phone. The problem is, it's similar to the pilot thing. If the nurses phone it, the other nurses basically ridicule them. So they'll say you're weak, you're not strong, like you don't. And it's because they're avoiding phoning it themselves. And it's the shame and the separation. It's the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot. Like I said, there seems to be a lot of these systems. I can't speak on other countries, but a lot of these systems, specifically in this country, and I don't understand why. I don't know if it takes longer to do this or provide whatever. But there's a lot of these systems in this country that seems to be the same, which is why we right now it just seems like it's in turmoil. That can only last so long. It can only last.
Shame, it will literally compound and reach a critical mass, and that's what we've got. We've got a country which is falling.
Yeah, it's falling apart at the moment, and it doesn't seem. I can't see that much of a way out. I think this is one of the reasons why I'm looking to move. But yeah, in terms of trying to fix it, even for me, I wouldn't even know where. I do understand like politicians and stuff have a difficult job. I do, but I also believe that their focus a lot of the times is their own pocket, and the arguments that us are having about you being Muslim and this person with that is irrelevant. Because
it's subsection of
you guys
that
are all poor, and these guys that are all rich don't care about you guys at all. So complain and fight and kill each other as much as you want. It allows us to put in rules that's going to continue making us more money, giving us more money, and giving us more control over everything, which gives us more money. So I just think people are seeing it wrong, and they're too trigger happy to just be pushed into to violence and just go with the same narrative.
They're angry, aren't they? And they want an outlet for their anger. And like we said earlier, the closest people to you that you can differentiate yourself from, they're the ones that are going to get the anger, because it's easiest.
We do it in our families, and it's something I spoke to a few people about. I say we treat our families worse than we treat strangers. And it just seems to be a normal habit.
Really good.
Do you know what I mean? When you actually think about it, I guess it's due to comfortability as well, but because I'm comfortable with my siblings, and when I get angry, I express my anger. But then when I'm angry and I'm outside and I'm at work or I'm doing something, I'm just like, I'm holding it inside, and I'm still being nice, and I'm still putting on the mask. But we don't give that same respect to our loved ones. So again, it's the same out there. These are people that have no real relationship for. So I'm just going to express my anger, and that outlet of anger I'm going to give to our own. This is why when I'm complaining about what the government are doing, I start burning down my corner shop, and I was like, doesn't make sense. It's your shop. Like, this helps you. The next day you're like, I want to drink. Where am I going? Go somewhere else. It's just stupid, but people seem to constantly do the same.
It's a lack of education, understanding.
100%.
It is a disconnection from reality, which is where I think the martial arts come in, because when you're fighting someone and sparring, you can't ignore the fact that you're getting punched or kicked. You have to deal with reality. Martial arts is a really good way of bringing somebody back to reality, and then we get the community and the connection. And I think that is where we need to start putting the country back together, and even ourselves internally. So physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, we need to be connected with ourselves.
But one thing I feel that you just said there about is the lack of intellect. In fact, I'd probably start there. It is the lack of intellect, because people aren't educated enough to even articulate how they're feeling or express it or understand that they should go to X, Y, Z first. Here's the thing though, our school systems have been the same for years. I don't think it's changed in almost 100 years. Which is ridiculous. Everything else is progressing. We and our next generation of kids have been educated the exact same way as
we were
back then. They're still doing Shakespeare, and I'm like, there's no relevance. I'm sorry. They're still doing algebra, unless you're going into something that. But again, I'm just looking at it, and I'm like, well, the people that run the country obviously are okay with this, because it's them. That why is it that it's small things? But why is it that I've got the latest iPhone and the latest, or my house has got the top technology, and relatively, say, cheap, as in like you can get accessible to quite comfortably. But if I walk into a bank, they have the oldest computers. The older, they're still that it's the slowest system. But I'm saying it has to be intentional, because why is it that you're not up? Like, none of your systems. I've walked into a computer shop buying like the latest whatever, and their system is shit. Their system is old. But again, it must be to do with the fact that, for me, I'm just like, that can't be a mistake. It has to be an intentional thing, and it goes the same with our education. When you look into it, Rockefeller spent a lot of money to create workers and so on and so forth. And from that perspective, as if I was that person, I kind of get what he's done, and it makes sense and it's smart. But I'm like, mate, it's getting worse now. Like, upgrade it, maybe not as fast, but just it should still be some form of progression. So things have to move forward because everything else does. So I think I'd probably start with there, like education itself and allowing people to be more articulate. But then, like I said, if they are more articulate, it means they are a lot harder to manipulate and move, and that's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't serve those
to do the manipulation.
So that's what I'm trying to say. I think this is why I feel like I always like to look at it from the actual incident, but then also take a massive step back and look at the actual the bigger picture. And unfortunately, the system that we have in place only really helps the guys at the top, and they're going to keep it that way for as long as we are still blind to it and keep fighting amongst ourselves because of the smallest differences and separate, like as you say, the small separations and the gaps that we create that create the tension, that create the illnesses, that create this. Until we actually realize that, and with people like yourself, Tim Fletcher, the martial arts world that can potentially help if they start incorporating these things as well as
can make a big change.
But we will have a lot of people to fight against that are going to not want us to do that. So
I think this conversation has been very beneficial. It's important to have these conversations. What can we expect for your career next? Just giving us a quick roundup to finish it off for today.
So it's weird because obviously lost my last fight. There's controversy on how it went, that doesn't bother me. For me, I wasn't at my best, so that's what I need to focus on, bettering myself. But I'm in that phase of like, no, I really wanna level up now. So I'm not gonna rush back into another fight. I know people are excited for me to get back and fight, and I'm excited as well. But I also want to get to the point where, so potentially, I don't know yet 100%, but potentially for the rest of this year, I'm just gonna be focusing on leveling up.
Yeah.
Because there's certain things that I know if I tweak, I'm gonna force everybody to fight me. They can't do anything else apart from fight me. Yeah. And I put money on myself every single time if it comes to you fighting me, because I just know how I'm talented in that area, which is why when people that claim to be as good a striker as me or a better striker than me, they see me striking, or they see me standing, and they see my distance, they see my sharpness, my precision, they're like, nope. And they opt to try and take the easy way out. But the fact that I've allowed that space to happen, and it's so weird because similarly what we said about performing a specific way. When I'm in the gym and I have to grapple, I have to wrestle, I feel great.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable, and I'm grappling some high level people. But when I have to put it together, fight under the lights, I don't perform in the same way. So I need to get myself the mental training, but also get myself to that point where even in that space, it's a headache. So I'm forcing you back to where I'm best at. So that's the focus at the moment. So I'm not exactly sure when I'm going to come back in, but when I come back in, trust me, I'm going to be making so much noise, and I'm going to be back to back fighting because I know I don't receive too much damage. So I know I can fight regularly. So I'm thinking best to give myself that time and space to improve. Then when I come back in, just go on an absolute killing spree. Get to that top of that pyramid that I know I'm gonna get to. And also in that time, and with all that the attention I'm gonna be getting, just give back. Like I said, I've got a couple big projects and stuff coming. I'm in the comic book space as well. So I'm partnering with Black Sands, an amazing comic book. So they're going to be releasing, but then I'm also doing my own comic in the background. I'm hopefully going to be doing a little game with all the Street Fighters as well. Like a proper card game for people to play. So loads of stuff there. I'm writing scripts. I don't know how I got time to do all this stuff, but I find it. I'm writing scripts and stuff as well. Like I've found interest I got so much in my mind. I'm just a creative person, which is why my walkouts are the way my walkouts are. My finishes and so on and so forth. But so I've been writing scripts and stuff, and I'm working with some people to produce those films or series that we're going to do. We're doing short films. I've just opened up production company. So I'm going to be doing short films myself with my guy Kish. And there's a lot happening, but it's an exciting place, not just for fighting. If you're looking at me, there's so much. There's so much.
What I'm hearing there is the world is your playground.
The world is my playground, man, and I think as you say, I've been doing it since I was a kid, and I'm never going to stop playing. I'm never going to stop being a kid. It just reminds me of that. Have you seen that film Tag?
No.
Yeah, it's a good film. It's a film based on a true story where these guys that have been playing tag every year, same year.
Yeah.
And they
I have seen it.
Yeah, they're chasing each other around while people promise getting married. It's like, and it's just, but that element of just keeping your child self, because I think we are at the most creative, we're at the most confident, the most thing at that age, and the world tends to suck it away from you.
Yeah.
So trying to anchor yourself and attach yourself to certain things that keeps that inner child, inner creativity, and then also just learning about yourself as you're going along to try and maintain that energy is very important.
Thanks for giving us this time. I think the conversation's been great.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to me to have you as a guest today because we're family.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like we've been brothers for a long time, and like I said, we are family. I just love seeing your growth, what you're doing, and you've always similar to myself, because we cannot talk for ages, and then we start talking about, it's like we follow the same path in different ways, and we talk about this other stuff, and then the nuggets that you give me, because you're so educated in this space now, and obviously still growing in that space, you're helping me out still with my new family as well, and helping them out based on that knowledge. You're helping me out. And I just appreciate you, man. Appreciate you, love you, and just can't wait for everything more to come. And I just want to be a part of it.
Love you too, man. So I've just sat down to reflect a little bit on the conversation I've had with Michael Page, and I don't know if I'm sad or upset or intrigued. Basically, something that Ido Portal said in episode 3, he said, we can go nowhere through the practice to suddenly go everywhere in a single moment. And this is where the practice builds something within inside us. We accumulate either an ability of attention, focus, concentration, or an energy or a knowledge, or maybe our ethics and morals become something, and then we have something that we can examine, and we need to differentiate whether it's something to do with us or it's an external thing. This happens once we reach this critical mass. That's the scale of the direction we're heading, our orientation. Are we self-sabotaging and heading downwards, or are we now benefiting ourselves and the environment and the world we live in by heading upwards? And if we reach this critical mass through our practice, a fuel within inside us can ignite, and then suddenly our rocket launches and we go everywhere in one moment. We get an epiphany or a realization. This is part of the practice that Michael talked about when he said that his dad made us sit and watch the tournaments. So instead of us running around playing with all the other kids, we sat and we watched. We didn't just look, we observed. And there's a big difference. We used discrimination between us and the people that were fighting. We said, that person is a black belt. I'm not a black belt yet. That person twists their foot. I don't twist my foot. That person is more flexible than me. I am not as flexible as them. All of these gave us goals to work towards. We need to be fit. We need to be flexible. We need to understand the techniques. We need to be strong. We need to learn how to feel when to throw the attacks, when to throw the counters, how fit we are when we need to push, when we need to rest, when we need to beat somebody using tactics because they're stronger than we are. So we went through this process of association and differentiation, which is actually discriminative practice. It gave us something like a cocoon. So inside ourselves, we implode, we melt away, and something else is born, and it takes over the space that we occupied because of this critical mass within the practice. What that does, it gives us something to feel versus something to understand. So to understand is to have the ability to explain in words a sequence of complex causes and effects with the purpose of duplicating or replicating it, which is like cell division. So it can be done again and again repeatedly in order to reach the same outcome. By having the ability
to control something. So you are the cause and you have an effect. And you know that if you put your foot here, this will happen. If you put your hand here, something else will happen. You fake a person and you use this push and pull that we talk about within our martial arts systems. It causes an effect on the other person. And then you have a system of prediction, which means you've gathered some control out of the chaos of all these different labyrinths that we're in. So first of all, we must understand our body and how it communicates to us. So we've got all of these different movements within ourself: physical, mental, emotional movements. So movements of the mind, movements of our emotions, our feelings that come up, and they interact with each other because that's how we experience the world. There's plenty of signals for people to be paying attention to, but if they pay attention to them, they're going to understand themselves. This leads me to a bit of a problem. So awareness and the practice is one entry point into the stream of emotions, and it leads to having something to understand ourselves. Maybe we struggle to understand ourselves because we haven't actually accumulated any form of critical mass or experiences or interactions between our moving parts: physical, mental, emotional. If we don't have anything to understand, it's impossible to understand it. So first we have to accumulate something. Maybe the human race is lost only because they haven't taken responsibility for creating themselves in the first place. And this is a sad thing to think about. But I know it's part of the practice, and it's something I'm going to have to reflect upon and go through. On a better note, I'd like to thank Michael, who's a dear, trusted friend of mine. I'm honoured to call him my family, and I thank you, Michael, from the bottom of my heart for who you are and the years and experiences we've spent together over the time, because you've helped me see who I am and form some type of critical mass within myself. I love you, and I can't wait to see what you do next in your amazing career. Thanks, Mike, and I'll catch everybody soon.